Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire through candid and inspiring conversations. Leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Hi there, and welcome to today's bonus episode. I recently had the honor of being interviewed on the podcast, Wake the Fuck Up, with host Lori Hoover. Based on the title alone, you can imagine how much fun Lori and I had. I hope that you enjoy this interview. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's bonus episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Lori Hoover, intuitive guide and psychic medium. Together, let's wake the fuck up. Today's guest started her Pilates practice over 20 years ago after being in a traumatic car accident. She had no idea that her rehabilitative program would not only change her physically, but also alter the direction of her life. Through Pilates, she was guided to a deeper understanding of the body, mind, and spirit, which enhanced her spiritual gifts and elevated her abilities as an intuitive empath. She is an empowerment coach and mentor, host of the top-rated podcast, Empowered Within, celebrity trainer, and Pilates health and fitness expert. Please welcome Jennifer Pilates to the show.
Thank you so much, Lori. I am so honored to be here today, and I love everything that you're doing with the podcast, and I especially love the name.
Thank you so much. It was difficult, actually, to get started after I was intuitively given that name. It put me off a little bit.
So, I can imagine.
Yeah, but that's okay. It took me a while to come around to it, 14 months, actually, but I'm really grateful that I listened to my intuition and actually got it started because it's been an amazing couple of months, really.
Yeah, you have an incredible podcast with incredible guests that you've had on.
Thank you so much. It's crazy. We never really do know what will show up for us that is going to alter the course that we're on, like this podcast for me. How did the car accident that you were in change the direction of your life?
That is such a great question. For me, I was very much climbing the corporate ladder. I had a complete plan, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, where my career was headed, what goals I had. I had the money in the state. I knew I was going to buy a house at 30. Everything was laid out. Like I had more ducks and more rows than I think anyone my age at that point in time. And I was in my late 20s. And when this car accident happened, it was at a time where, if we're being honest, I was not exactly happy in my corporate career. I loved where I lived. I was out in Boulder, Colorado at the moment, but there was something missing. And so this moment, when the car accident transpired, literally it just changed everything. The huge blessing was that I was in Boulder, Colorado, which at the time was the mecca of alternative care. Something that coming from Cape Cod and growing up, I always say as a little country bumpkin there, I didn't really experience all of that. So I was immediately thrusted into all of these incredible healing modalities and acupuncture and chiropractic care and massage and craniosacral and you name it, I had it. And neurological assessments and workups and the whole 9 yards. And so as I was going through everything, and I had all soft tissue damage from the base of my skull down into my SI area, it was quite painful. And one day the chiropractor said, I think you should try this thing called Pilates. And at that point in time, I would have tried anything. The pain was so excruciating. So I found this incredible instructor that he referred me to, and her specialty was rehabilitative Pilates care. And so lo and behold, I started with her. I was feeling better. I loved how I felt. I got deeply into the Pilates method, into the true body, mind, and spirit of it, and connecting to my soul to the point where I can remember there was a day I went in, and still to this day it brings tears to my eyes. I had gone in for a session and I was on the machine called the Reformer, and I was laying there and about to do a basic footwork exercise, and the tears just started streaming down my face. And I just looked at her, and she was empathic. Now, at the time, I didn't know what that meant. So she totally got what I was going through, and she could tell that all of these emotions were really starting to come out of me from the car accident and probably everything else that had been going on as well, with not being happy at work and so on and so forth. And so it really was an incredible experience to connect with myself instead of connecting with the outside world. Finding me, you could say, finding my passions, finding all sorts of things. It was truly like being reborn again. I had a new passion for life. I had a new zest for life. And through that time, I continued. When I was allowed back to work, I was allowed back I think it was 3 hours a day, if I remember correctly. And I still wasn't very happy. I was still in the rehab, and the company was going public, and there were some financial issues. And I remember making a very adult decision as an executive in the company. And I said, okay, if someone has to go, then I'll put my head on the platter. You can lay me off. And at the time, like, it was a very adult decision to make at such a young age at that time. And you never really realize the depth of what you're diving into when you do something like that. And a couple of days later, I saw the regional director and the HR person. They're like, hey, let's go to lunch. And I was like, oh, this can't be good. And we went to lunch, and they laid me off. And I was like, I was devastated. You would have thought I never saw this coming. I was like, what do you mean you're laying me? Like, Lori, it was hysterical looking back at it. And I did what any 20, it was 26, 27, I don't know, 28 years old. And I packed up my things and I left, and I went back to Boulder, because the company I was working for was outside of Boulder at the time. And I went to this local establishment that we all went to. And I was just sitting there in the middle of the daytime. And the bartender looked at me and was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I just got laid off. And he was like, oh. He's like, it's on me. Basically, don't worry about it. And so it was just it was like my ego, what my world was supposed to be, was really struggling with where I was being ushered to. And so it was quite an experience through that. And it was so amazing. I started painting, getting back into it. I painted as a young child. I was painting again. I took not odd jobs, but part-time jobs that were fun, that were things I would have never done. I was never a waitress. I never did those fun jobs that kids did throughout their life. Like, I was in this one industry since I was 15 years old. So I was heavily engrossed in the senior living, independent living care programs. I specialize in Alzheimer's disease. So it was my life. And I'm very passionate about it to this day. I'm a huge advocate for seniors and their families, because I feel that there's so much that goes on in that environment. But yeah, it changed so much. I wasn't a waitress, because I'll be clear, Laura, I don't think I'm waitress material. Like, I'm just not. I'm not good at it, and bless you all that are. So I was a hostess with the mostess in this little Italian restaurant that, if anyone that's listening knows me, they know where that was in Boulder. And it was awesome. Like, it was like the Friends of Boulder. We all worked at this restaurant. We had a blast. I worked at night. During the daytime, I was going and doing my rehab work. And then after my rehab work, I had a small settlement from the car accident. And it was just enough to go to the Pilates school. And one of the teachers had approached me and said, I really think you should do this. And I didn't think twice. And I was like, that sounds like a great idea. I'm really enjoying this, and I want to give back. If I can help one person, if I can keep one person from being in pain, that's my mission right now. And 20 some years later, here I was just this morning working with someone virtually who was in so much pain, and 10 minutes into our session, he was like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, this is a miracle. I'm still able to do it. And so it's such a blessing, the car accident. It just changed my world incredibly. And I will be forever grateful for that.
And that it's amazing how that actually works. But you've actually continued to evolve your gifts and abilities over the years, working within the Pilates method, like Reiki, reflexology, Chinese acupressure, energy healing. How do you actually incorporate these into a healing session? Like, how do you know which to start with?
As talented as you are, Lori, with your intuitiveness, it's the same way. When I'm with someone, like, yes, I have my bag of tools from my years of training with the Pilates method. And the way that I was taught in my method, it was very rehabilitative. And so I really believe that in having sat down, this is with Joseph Pilates, in intuitive sessions, he was a healer. He was a healer in his own. So my healing abilities started through Pilates. God had a plan. If a client came in pain in the very beginning, they would leave fine. I would have their pain. So that's how that story started. So it was just my body was healing through Pilates and healing this individual and not even recognizing it, but not knowing to the depth of what I know now and how to protect oneself so that you don't take on other people's ailments and so on and so forth, which is always challenging every day being an intuitive empath. So now how that had evolved is the sessions evolved into, I knew that I could do Reiki. I really enjoyed that aspect, and that started with seniors. So my Pilates business, my niche became rehabilitative care and seniors. And so there was an older woman who I would do Reiki on. Now, she didn't necessarily know that's what I was doing. She just knew that she was 89, she came in pain, she left, she felt amazing, and all she thought I was doing was stretching. And that's all she needed to know. Like, I just wanted her to feel better. So that's how that started. The coaching, the business coaching and the empowerment coaching, that all evolved through sessions because, when you're in the sessions, it becomes so therapeutic, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So the coaching was born through that. And when I'm in a session, depending on what I think the person needs when they're showing up, versus what it turns out to be are generally always two entirely different things. And so I go with what I'm guided to do intuitively. A great example was today's virtual session with a gentleman that I was working on, and he was in a lot of pain. And I thought, okay, we're just going to go through some things. And I know that there's the ability to heal through voice. I know that there's the ability that I could tell him exactly. He didn't need to tell me where he was hurting. I knew where he was hurting, so I knew what I could zone in on and guide him through. So he did his part and I did my part. And so it just flows. It truly just goes. And in looking back, I always was into the metaphysical world. I love tarot cards, oracle cards. I love going to see intuitive advisors. All of that. And there were always times, always, from a very young age, I just knew things. And I'm sure that you resonate with that, Lori. I just knew. Yep. And people were annoyed and people would I was gaslighted, I think, my entire freaking life up until probably about 3 years, maybe 4 years ago. And then that's when I really became empowered within myself. And then that's when it was like, oh, hell no. No, you didn't. And let me tell you what you did. And so it really, in looking back, and I'm like, son of a gun, I knew I was right. And it's not about being right, but it's about trusting your intuition and knowing when you know something, you know it. And if something in your body feels off, something's not right. And you've got to learn how to trust yourself. And it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's a big deal to actually be able to tune into your body as well, because I think that most of us are very disconnected these days. And I've never really done Pilates or yoga for that matter, but you mentioned doing a virtual training with somebody. What are the benefits of doing virtual Pilates training?
So virtual Pilates has been amazing. And so there's something I'll tell you, Lori, we'll get a good kick out of this story. I'd like to tell a story of how I failed because it's one of my biggest insecurities is failing, and I have failed. So when I moved about 11 years ago, I was leaving Boston at the time, and I had a studio there and on Cape Cod. I was heading out to Arizona. I didn't want to have to give up my clients, so I decided we were going to do something called Skype Pilates. So that's how long ago it was. Skype was a big deal. And so at that time, I developed virtual Pilates training. Through your computer, you could work with me anytime, anywhere, around the world. I'm here for you. We're going to have the same benefits. It lasted for about 6 months, Lori. No one was doing that. No one wanted it. I was written up in the Wall Street Journal. No one cared about it until there was a pandemic and the world shut down. Then everybody wanted it. The benefits are the same as traditional Pilates. What is above and beyond is that it's a lot on your time. So if you are someone that's still working at home or you're a mom at home, it's around your schedule and it's around what's convenient for you. And do you want to do it in your backyard? Do you want to do it in the cellar, in the garage, in your spare bedroom, in the living room? It's fine. Not a big deal. Pilates was always based around using your own body's weight. That way you're never truly overdoing anything. And so there's so much that we can do by working with ourselves before we start adding on lots of other stuff. Now, with that being said, I adore the Pilates equipment. I love all of it. I've had brick and mortar studios. I've enjoyed it all. There is a time and a place to change things up. And I think right now, as a society in general, for, 15, 20 years, I think, Lori, it feels like we've really relied on everything outside of us. And I would hope that the blessing out of the last few years was to rely on you. And, or at least maybe you're waking the F up to relying on you. That's our hope. That is our hope. And so with that, it's let's go back into the body and let's have a towel, have a mat, you, me, your body, my body, and let's go for it. And let's go deep, because you will get sometimes more out of that session than you will any other session. And so with this gentleman, honestly, like that's what we did. He was actually just across the coast here. He was on the east coast of Florida. I was on the west coast of Florida. And we use our mats. I train with him quite frequently, actually. And it's all virtual. And he is amazed at the progression that he has made in his golf game. And that's how this started, because he knew this golf special Pilates and golf was one of my specialties. And so that's how he found me. And knowing my rehabilitative background, and of course he has a handful of injuries and such, and he's just amazed. And even today he was like, oh my gosh, I'm in pain and I'm worried. I've got this huge golf tournament. And I was like, it's okay. It'll be fine. And 10 minutes into it, it was fine. When he has me on speed dial, and I'm like, it will be great. That opportunity for him just to be able to get to me is amazing. I have much more flexibility with clients and scheduling virtually than I ever did when I had an in-home studio or a brick and mortar studio. I think that's amazing when clients can just be with me and their body in a mat. That's great. Now, sometimes, sure, do we add in a free weight? Maybe 2 bottles of water. It depends on what that client needs. There are sessions where sometimes it turns into half coaching and half therapy almost. And there are other times where it's very healing, depending when someone shows up and I look in their eyes and I'm like, okay, I know where this is going today. Let's lay down. And we go for it. So it really has the same benefits, which go back to Joseph Pilates' guarantee, which is in 10 sessions, you will feel a difference in your body. Within 20 sessions, you will begin to notice a difference in your body. And within 30 sessions, you will have a new Pilates body. And what that means for each individual is if you are needing to lose inches, that will happen. Increase muscle, that will happen. Decrease fat composition, that happens. Lose the inches, that happens. The confidence, the no longer being in pain, the sleeping better, the being happy. All of those things, there are so many benefits.
So, Jennifer, with that in mind, I know how beneficial it is to move the energy in the body. Mm-hmm. So over and above what all those wonderful things that you just named, can Pilates help like decrease fear, anxiety, emotional stress? Can it work and help people in that way?
Absolutely. Tremendously. And I can say that from someone who has struggled with anxiety and stress. And just as you speak of the energy, we want to move the chi through our body. That's what it's doing. And when you are really working with your body and the breath work of Pilates, you're going so deep and inward, you're releasing the outer world and you're releasing what's inside to let it come up and let it go out. Versus a lot of times we've stuffed things down, whether that be literally or figuratively speaking. We can just let it go. We can just release it. And that is so beautiful. It has helped me immensely through a lot of times as an intuitive empath. I don't know if you have this beautiful blessing, Lori. When there are solar storms and there are all those energetic storms that go on in the world, I will be one of those lucky winners that feels it all. And even before today, like there was something, even though there's technically no storm in sight, I felt something revving up and I said, okay, first I'm going to lay down, do a little meditation here. And then I just started moving through my body. And so I was moving to help just release it through versus sitting here and really having to just endure, I guess you could say. I was helping to just get it to go through me. And it really, and for anxiety, I cannot say enough about how it has saved me during some pretty horrific times. And starting with the car accident 20 some years ago.
Oh, for sure. I've been trying to meditate every morning, move my body in some way each day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also in the process of adopting a whole food plant-based diet. Now, what are some of your personal daily mind-body health practices? What do you personally do to keep all that connected?
Sure. First, I want to say I am not perfect. I am definitely on an 80-20 rule on a good day or on a good week. But I will say every morning I do have a practice. I have a meditative practice that I do, meditation in the morning, that also goes through affirmations and gratitude and just connecting with myself first thing. And it's quiet. My phone is off. My phone does not get turned on until probably around 10 a.m. That's when I bring the world into me. And so like you, I will do that. I love to drink every morning lemon juice. So I drink about 32 ounces of lemon juice. Then I'm either going for a walk in nature or I'm going out in the pool and I'm doing my Pilates in the pool. Then I come back in, I'm having more lemon water. I'm having my plant-based supplements that I work with and fueling my body, and then adding in the protein and the protein shake. And taking time at that point, then I have gratitude journal time and just time to really be grateful for my day and then really plan through a grateful mind how I would like it to look, right, Lori? How I would that day to look. And then I have my decaf coffee. I'm having a banana at that time. And so it's much different than how life used to be for me. This is all about nourishing myself, my body, mind, and spirit first. And then I'm like, okay, let me open the gates and let me let the world in. And then let's really see what's going to happen today. And then throughout the day, I'll take time to remember to breathe, which I know sounds silly to some people, but you would be surprised how little we breathe. We breathe pretty much just to our chest area. And when you're in Pilates or in yoga or in breath work, you're truly breathing through your whole body, which is very different, very grounding, again, releasing anxiety, toxins, tensions, all of that. So I will then repeat a little meditative state with some Reiki music and just release and allow whatever messages, downloads, whatever needs to come in, comes in. And I can just wake up if I feel like I've dozed off in that in and out of state. And then it's okay. I shake things off. I clear myself off again. Okay, and now the day goes on. So I really try to go in and out throughout the day. It's not just an in the morning and the night aspect of taking care of myself or making sure that I'm on point or connected, because it is so easy, especially right now, to be disconnected. And so throughout the day, I'll do things like that. I have on high vibrational music. I have a new station on YouTube that I have fallen in love with. It's called, you can Google Lori, you're going to laugh. It's called French Cooking Music. Oh my gosh.
No way.
I play it all day. I started it this Easter and it's so meditative. Like my two kitty cats are like zoned out. I am so like, it is amazing. I love it. So that's like my new thing. And so that will be on like all day in between YouTube cat TV for them when they need a moment. And then at the end of the day, there's that non-negotiable where am I going back down to the pool? Am I going for a walk? What am I doing to clear out the day? And then coming in and starting my nighttime routine to calm down and just to be and relax. So I really have to set up my day working from home to clear out home versus work. And so that's why the beginning of the day at some point, it's leaving here to clear out the waking up in the home to coming back to work to then going back out to coming back in. So that's how I make it work. And so far, so good. It's not always great every day, but I try. And then there's some clients thrown in there in cars and in podcasts and running to the chiropractor and all that good stuff. But that all becomes fun now when you can really look at the blessing and everything and just smile and go, okay, and learn how to giggle at things. It makes a big difference.
Sure. And I think it's really important to have that sense of separation, because a lot of times people, when they work from home, they need more structure typically to make sure that they're staying on track with what they're doing. So now I love this next question because it is such a key component to basically everything. How does mindset come into play with, let's just say, manifesting in general, but specifically in business?
Oh, what a great question, Lori.
You're doing this. Well, you're doing this from home. And so you're doing your meditation and your affirmations and things. And I think that's all part of it, the manifestation process. And specifically when you are doing this for business, how do you do it? How does mindset come into play?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I am a big feng shui lover, numerology lover, all about the energy in my home and in my work office. So everything is feng shuied, and taking it one step further down to who I am, my birth date, the time that I'm born, all of that stuff. So everything is set up to help me with success and to help me stay aligned and to help me feel good and to keep the energies up. And the biggest thing, whether it is in business or for life, when you are working with the laws of attraction, i.e. manifesting, is to keep your vibration up. And now what does that mean for some people that may not get it? It's when you feel sad, you have a low vibration. When you are ecstatic, you have a high vibration. And when you are in a higher vibration, you attract more things to you. And for instance, it's funny that you asked this one today because I worked on something yesterday that I hadn't done in a really long time. And I also have a vision board. I love that. And I change that out all the time. And I heard this woman tell this story. And she said, I told the universe I wanted $30,000. And I told them that I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I wanted it to make me laugh. And I wanted it to come in such a ridiculous way that I knew this was from the universe. There was no doubt. And so as I started to listen, I thought, this is really fun. I want to see how this story ends. And so she started to, you believe that. You have to feel it. You have to embody it, whether it's $30,000, $1 million, a Ferrari, whatever it is. Maybe it's just the groceries paid for, whatever that is. You've got to believe it in your heart and soul. So she started just going around knowing that she had this money coming to her, as an example. And she believed it. She went out shopping. She said, oh, but I don't have the money. And then she goes, up. But I have $30,000 coming to me. I'm not worried about it, and bought the dresses. No, I'm not saying go in debt, but I'm saying you vibrate at such a high level that you just know this is coming to you. And you can start small, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But to get to the end of the story, the woman basically, weeks go by, her girlfriend comes over who is not wealthy, sits down and says, you're never going to believe this, I won the lottery. And she looks at her girlfriend and she goes, I guess I'm getting my $30,000. And the girl goes, you are. So here's a crazy way she got it. They went out to lunch. They were laughing hysterically. And who saw that coming? No one saw that coming. So there are different ways that you can work with the universe. That's one of the ways that you can do that. In business, I do use my vision board quite heavily. And something that was interesting that I had put up was that I wanted to be in, I think it says, I don't know, in the top world podcast or something like that. At the very beginning, before I even started, Lori, I put that up on my vision board, not even knowing what that meant, not even knowing how many podcasts there were in the world. I didn't know anything about podcasting. And in under 90 days, we were in the top 10% out of all podcasts around the world. And wow. Exactly. Now, coinciding with that, I was having Marie Diamond, who is like the feng shui master from the movie The Secret, on my podcast. So we started talking about it, and she said, let's go one step more. And I said, shall we? She goes, let's get you in the top 1%. I said, okay, that sounds lovely. She was like, okay, so now you're going to write up there that you want to be in the top 1%. And I said, okay, so we'll do that. So we're getting there. We're getting closer. So there's little things like that I work with when I'm looking for new clients. And people always tell me like, oh, I don't have clients or I don't have this. And I'm sure you've worked with this tool with the universe, Lori, as I say, make your schedule, make your dream schedule. Don't just open yourself up. When do you really want to work? What are the hours? And that will be filled. What do you need financially? Do you know your budget? Do you know a number? If I know a budget and a number, I know I'm making that money. There's no doubt in my mind. It's coming in. When I don't know, it's not coming in. And so when I tell the universe what I desire, and then I'll give a why, generally I'll give a why, it comes right in. Now, just equally so, remember going back to when I said if you're sad or you don't feel good, a couple of weeks ago, I had a little medical situation and I wasn't feeling well. And I was in and out of doctor's office and my work was dead for 10 days, Lori. I was like beside myself, not feeling well. I was beside myself, pulling my hair out going, are you kidding me right now? I need this. And so I kept going down the rabbit hole. Even knowing what I know, I kept going down the rabbit hole. And the moment I pulled myself out of the rabbit hole and I said to the universe, okay, this is what I need. This is the number. Here we go. I had a gangbuster day that was unheard of. So it's just about keeping your vibration high. When someone goes and cuts you off in the highway, I used to say a lot of not nice things. I probably gave them a few fingers or one. Not anymore. I look at it and I say, oh my God, bless that person. I hope they get to where they need to go. God bless them. How do I know I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know what's going on. Everybody's fighting a battle, so I'm always working with my mindset. Now, it's not perfect, and I have a moment, and I'm sure you do too, Lori, like we all have a day. Maybe we used to have weeks. Now I give myself moments. If you want to have a pity party, girl, you go do it. You've got some moments. You've got some minutes here, but we don't have hours for this. But you can embrace it, feel those emotions. I don't want to stuff emotions down anymore and have them turn into ailments or dis-ease in the body. I want to express it. I want to work through it. And then, gosh darn it, I want to move on from it.
Yes, for sure. And the more, like you were saying about just, you get these wins, right? The more that you work with the universal energies to manifest these things, you get these wins. You will see that this is actually happening. This is showing up the way that you asked for it. And then I think that it actually helps you to just have a greater faith in that this is how it works. And you trust more in the universe that, okay, let's do this. And then when you do have those moments, they are just, you get out of them so much more quickly, even if you only allow yourself a small moment or whatever. I think you don't really need much more than that the more you do this, because I don't know, it just puts you in a different state.
Correct. And it really helps when we're all taught to be like, why is this happening to me? And so dramatic and all of this. And it's no, wait a minute. How is this happening for me? What is the blessing? What is the lesson in this? What am I supposed to be seeing? What is the bigger picture here? Now, I'm not saying that within 10 seconds, that's where you're going with this. Probably not. But if you can give yourself an hour or a little bit of time and then you sit back and you go, wait a minute. Honestly, a week ago, I was in the hospital. And had this had been 4 years ago, it would have been a whole nother ball game. But I was in there and I was like, okay, I'm going to go through this. I'm not going to get upset. Like, I know what's going on. Clearly, these doctors don't know what the hell they're talking about. But I know me. Of course I'm right. They're not. So I'm keeping myself calm and I'm going through it. And I get out and I come home and it turns out there was a huge blessing. There was a wonderful medical machine that I could buy and have in my house that like has shown great. I'm helping other people to understand what's going on energetically in the world just through this machine that I wouldn't have thought of purchasing, or when I had thought about it 4 years ago, I'll tell you what, I was not in the mindset. I did not need to have that. That would have not have been helped me. But now it's okay. Oh, I have to use this machine. Oh, fine, I'll use it. Here we go. Yep. There's nothing there. I knew it. So there was this huge blessing. There was a security that came out of it. There was other issues that came out and new doctors that I found and different insurances. And so I really sat back and looked at all that and looked at where the universe was pointing me to also say, you've been through this before. So you knew that outcome. So you knew this was going to be better. It had to have been. When I always look at that, I always go, I've already been through this. I survived it. Okay. Surely this has to be better because I made it through before and I was fine. So why wouldn't I be brought out even better this time?
For sure. I'm really loving this conversation so far. And I want to take a quick break and pay some bills. But then when we come back, I want to discuss what you're actually doing as like an empowerment coach and things like that. I'd like to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with that, we'll just take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment.
Sounds great.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So, Jennifer, you're an empowerment coach. Can you tell us what exactly is that and what are the benefits of working with one?
So an empowerment coach is the description that I gave to my business and life coaching. And the reason that became so important and developed that name coinciding with the podcast Empowered Within was because there was this time in life where it was about empowering you. Not empowering the world, but empowering each individual, empowering you for where you are in this moment in time when you feel powerless. And when you can break down a situation where someone, because that's really how we feel. We're frustrated. We don't know what's going on. We can't figure this out. Our relationship's going to hell in a handbasket. Work isn't working. Well, okay. So you're telling me that you feel powerless. So how can I help you to become empowered? And we begin to peel back the onion and we go through it. And the next thing we come out is here you are, empowered, full of self-confidence, ready to move forward, to take action steps. And that's what's most important through my coaching is that there are key action steps that are laid out for each individual, depending on what their situation is, to show success for them, that they're doing it. Not that I'm doing it, that they're doing it. And that has really helped tremendously in so many people's businesses and helping with so many clients in their lives, in their personal lives. And a lot of times it's very overlapping. So that's why for a long time, it was just called like holistic life coaching and business coaching. And it's evolved over the years, what I've been doing with different names. And then this was like, no, this is it. This is where we're at now. This is so like you wake the F up. This is no, come on now. It's time to empower you. You trusting within you that you have the answers. It's when we open the doors to outside that we get confused by the fog and confused by the smoke. And we have to remember that what's out there is smoke and mirrors. We have to remember what's true inside. And once I do that with someone, whether they're an executive, whether they're someone that's working at home with a Pilates studio or a wellness practice, or intuitive advisors, I've worked with princes and princesses, you name it. Like I've worked with some pretty amazing people. It all comes down to that one aspect of, okay, you're feeling powerless and you do have fear. So once we can dissect and get rid of those, then there's our golden road. There we go. We can open it up. Yeah. Here's our action steps and we move forward. So it's worked out so well. And I'm really loving how it's evolved, coinciding even with the podcast. It's all worked out quite nicely.
For sure. And something like that, having somebody in your corner as you do go through that process, most of us, when we go through the process of awakening, let's say, it is all about that peeling back the layers and healing wound after wound and dealing with just all this BS as you're going through it. It's really helpful to have somebody that can just be there and hold space and help you as you're going through that. Now, you state that empowerment coaching can bring success to someone's personal and professional life. Like how?
So, for instance, we've had a little bit of a situation in the last couple of years. It's really changed a lot.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So suddenly, everyone's roles have changed. So you've got couples staying at home who now everything is flying around the house. Kids may be flying, animals. What's going on? Whose role is this? Oh my God, I feel like I'm doing nothing. We've got the perfectionist who's nothing's going well. I don't know where to turn or where to start. And so that's where it's exactly as you're saying, hold space for someone and say, okay, let's just ground for a moment and let's look at what is working versus what isn't working. Because really, things were working so much better than they had been working. But because certain people who were so used to being in control based on their schedule, because that made them feel safe, didn't realize that by letting loose of the reins, things were actually falling into place the way they should. That was even eye-opening to me when I was working through with couples and mothers and fathers and executives at home and them going, oh, like I can just be. That was for, I would say 80% of my clients, that was a big realization of, I don't have to be perfect in their eyes. Everybody doesn't have to be sitting down here at 5:00 right now. Things have changed. So you're evolving. Your family's evolving. So while the whole world is in an opportunity to change things up for the better, because we want to look at the positive, how can you change your environment up? Be it if you're a mom or a dad or a couple or an executive at home. How can you change that up? Because you have the opportunity to change the life that you weren't happy with to begin with. Most people.
Right.
And here's the kicker, Lori. 90% of these people didn't realize how unhappy they were pre-pandemic until a pandemic hit.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Wow.
You would think that there would be some inkling of, wow, this sucks. I don't.
No, it wasn't until when the it sucks started to happen, when people were called back to work. That's when the it sucks started to happen. That's when but we like our life now. We like dad at home and he's in one room and mom's in the other. I like the kids just running around screaming and playing. There's just something really great about, the fact that we have a family. I didn't realize we had a family. There were a lot of people who were programmed in no fault to their own, to yours, to mine. To some aspects, we all were living in the way things were. And it's challenging to step out of that. And so where at one point in time, that would have just been you or I, the entrepreneurs, the black sheeps who had stepped out before and people didn't quite get it. Now everybody's stepping out. And then once they got comfortable and realized this is really great, they didn't want to step back in.
Yeah. Well, the pandemic has literally shifted the way that we do everything, essentially. And I think that this was something, and I just have talked about this a couple different times, that I feel like there was something bigger at play here so that we could come back to ourselves and come back to our families and living a different life than the insanity that we've been doing for all this time.
I agree with you. Absolutely. I think that, and there's still, it's not, I don't want to say it's not over, but it's not over. Like we're still going into some uncharted territory where we have opportunities to still fix, mold, and work on ourselves and the world. And I hope that we all continue to.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, to help people to have that shift so that they can see, okay, there really is more to life than what we've been living.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I was intuitively guided to podcasting, like I told you earlier, and with the whole name and all of that stuff, I literally fought it for 14 months. So with you doing your coaching and all of that, how did you actually pivot to podcasting and end up having a top-rated podcast so quickly? I know you said that you did the vision board thing, but like you said, you put it on the board before you even really knew anything about it. So what caused that shift for you to go into this?
I'll tell you, it's a really an interesting story. I had come to Florida, and this was the year before the pandemic, for a working vacation. I was supposed to be coming here for a stress-free time after a serious medical condition. And so to Florida I had come, and I had family that was in the area, and I was supposed to be living like an hour and a half north of family. I was situated myself, which no one knew, in an area that I knew had the right doctors for me. So it was a big deal for me to walk away from where I was in Arizona. It even makes me tear up because that was my umbilical cord to life, literally. And so no one realized how traumatic it was for me to make this decision and to do this. And so I get in the car, Lori. I drive 6 days with my 2 fur babies to show up to what I had been led to believe as the Sedona of the sea. Healers, miraculous healers, the exact doctors that I needed, like at the den, you name it, because I'm a planner, I'm a Taurus. I had it all laid out. This wasn't my first rodeo. This is like the 7th road trip I've done cross country move. And when I showed up, the condo wasn't ready. They then put me in a house that was full of mold. And I woke up the next day and I was in tears. I was just a mess. Not because the place wasn't ready or that I was in mold, which I was deathly allergic to, but because of the whole gamut of everything. And I remember I called my grandfather crying hysterically. And he was like, so just pack your bags and come on down. And I was like, what? He's like, your room's ready. Come on down. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I came down to Fort Myers and was staying with my granddad, thinking I was going into this amazing situation of a safety net. He's always been more of a dad to me than anything. And I walked into mayhem, to say the least, Lori. And I'll just leave it at that for now. And so as far as the no stress and the working vacation, yeah, that went out the window about 48 hours after I arrived in Florida. My granddad fell really ill, and the blessing, and this is how the universe got me here, was that I could be with him for the last year of his life and help caretake for him and do all of this. So in the middle of this, I had an opportunity in the middle of helping my granddad, and my mom was here too, and my uncles were flying in, like our family, everyone pulled together. They're in the middle of all this. It was so wild. And this was now the pandemic is starting. So now the world's closing down. The whole stress-free year has gone out the window completely. I had an opportunity to work with Tony Robbins. And I said to my mother, I have to do this. And she was like, you do what you got to do. So I worked with him, and it was during this time that I had heard, you're going to do a podcast. I had never heard one. I'd never listened to one. I knew what they were, but I didn't know anything about them. Zero, nothing. And so I said, okay, I bought the microphone. I put it on my desk. I finished my training with Tony, and then I heard, not now. And I went back to caretaking with my granddad. And he passed shortly thereafter. And then I wasn't ready. That was definitely a not now. I didn't know what to do. It was very traumatic for me. And it was about, 5 months later, there was a new app, or it was new to me, that opened called Clubhouse, and a gentleman was on it, and it was all about podcasting. And so that was how I was guided back in. And this guy brought people up on stage, and I went on, and he said, so how long has it been since you haven't been doing your podcast? And I was like, whoa. Oh, no, you didn't. And the next thing, Jennifer was like on it. And that's really, again, it's one of those wild stories that had horrific, traumatic moments and beautiful moments. And she was born. And so she was born quite quietly. I planned her release for my birthday, of which no one knew. There was a new moon coming up. And so this shows you how much I didn't know about podcasting. I had pre-recorded the trailer. And so on the new moon, I set up all the astrologicalness perfectly. And I released the trailer, not knowing that it was going to the whole world. And then 2 days later is when I released the actual first episode. So I wanted to have my own birth with her, and then a birth for the whole world. So it ended up being two of the same. But yeah, that's how she was born. And I just had wonderful guests, and I had wonderful people that I was able at that point in time to say, hey, like, how do you do this? Or what do you do? And I took in just the right amount of information, because I just wanted to do what I was guided to do. Because I find every time I try to do what everyone else is doing, that never works for me. It doesn't matter what genre, what area of my life. I'm always the girl that goes in the back door. I never go in a front door anywhere. I'm always in the back door, and that's always worked for me. And so that's why I've just always, I always beat to my own drum, and I always will. And I still go at it this day with the podcast. Some podcasts have affiliate ads in them. Some don't. She is her own little babyness, and she's going to be one in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. I'm really enjoying doing this so far myself, doing the whole podcast thing, and I'm loving the amazing connections that I've already made so far. What has been your favorite part of the whole podcasting thing?
Oh, gosh, Lori, there are so many like you. I feel so incredibly blessed for the people that I've, met who have now become incredible friends and soul family members. That has been amazing. The number one part, which was always similarly important to me as when I started Pilates, a similar mission, is that I wanted to be able to help, inspire, and empower people around the world, especially during a time when no one kind of knew where to look. There didn't seem to be any light out there, even though we know that there was. I wanted to be that light. And that, to me, when people are sending me in messages about podcasts and expressing that a story has helped them or how this has helped them, and that feeds my soul. And that is, I feel so, so blessed.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I will have this information up in the show notes, but for anybody who'd like to actually find out what you're doing or work with you directly, how would they get in touch with you?
The best place is to head over to my website, which is jenniferpilates.com, and that will include everything from the podcast to the coaching to the Pilates. Everything is there, and you can contact me right through there as well.
Okay. Now, I actually ask this question pretty much of everybody, and it's based on the premise that we are all connected. That's the whole point of my website, that the fact that we're all connected, not just to ourselves, but to each other and to the world and everything in it. So based on your level of experience and your expertise, what one thing would you recommend that somebody could do to help them wake the fuck up, wake up to that, the reality of our interconnectedness?
I love that. I can't get enough of the name. It just makes, I want to say it all day long. I just love it. With the emphasis on the F word. I just love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. The first thing that comes to me, and I want to keep it simple because I want it to be something that is available to everyone, is go outside, go for a walk, or sit in nature, sit by the ocean, sit by a lake, bring a journal if you can, but just sit there and be, and look around and listen, smell. What do you hear? What do you see? And really get quiet with yourself and really ground in that moment and be aware of the inspirational ideas that may be coming through to you, because those are incredible clues as to where you're headed next.
Yes. Yeah. And I think everybody needs to heed that. They really do need to hear it and heed it, because that's going to be the piece that will actually help in that connecting. And that's what we all need to do.
Absolutely. And that's that time where you're tuning out the rest of the world and you're just tuning into you and to nature, into the universe, into God, Dalai Lama, whomever that you believe in. You're now just being. And now you can just listen. And I say bring the journal just in case. If you have an iPhone and you want to dictate into it, you can do that too. But just to be and just get clear. And just to clear everything in nature. Talk about revitalizing the body, mind, and spirit within. I can't think of a better way.
No, me neither. This has been so wonderful, really. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I first would like to say thank you, Lori, so much for this opportunity to be on your podcast and to meet you. This has been so much fun. You're an incredible host. You have an incredible podcast, and I'm honored. And I want to encourage everyone to continue listening. Go back and check out the other episodes of your podcast if they haven't, because you have so much to offer and so much enlightenment to really help people wake the fuck up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Really, truly.
You're welcome.
And I would like to say thanks to everyone who tuned in today. As always, I'm grateful for your presence. And I'll see you all back here next Sunday with another episode as we continue to wake the fuck up.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to jenniferpilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within.